Charles Schwab, they just said the quiet part out loud. And I think almost every single XRP holder or even just crypto holder should listen closely to what they are telling us. Now, we're going to get to that point here in a moment, but I do want to go over a few things. So I made a video roughly 48 hours ago, and it was titled, XRP is about to explode. Fed crypto catalyst confirmed. Now, obviously right now, if you make any sort of bullish content in this space, you are going to get a ton of hate. And hey, it's completely normal, especially when the market is down the way that it is. However, in this video, I was talking about specific factors happening right now that supports risk on assets like XRP and the entire crypto market to go absolutely parabolic. Now, 48 hours ago, XRP trading at $1.88. XRP right now at $2.06. Now, I did make that video right around this point on the chart. Now, does that mean that I was right and XRP is about to go crazy? Not exactly. We're too early to call it, but I will say this. This is a very good start because number one, we did reclaim $2 on the daily candle closes, and that's significantly higher than my original target down here at about roughly $1.94, which was a crucial level for us to flip. Now that we flipped $2 and looking at this on the weekly, if we manage to actually close out the weekly candle close, that happens today. If we manage to close above $2, this is going to be huge because we will reclaim significant support on this chart going all the way back to the summer. It would also flip the lows going all the way back to March and April. And on top of this, we would start to form a much larger continuation on this chart to above roughly $2.20. If we manage to push above $2.20, I do suspect that we will most likely continue to the $2.42 level. And then after that, we look at some of the other high targets up here at about roughly like $2.70 on our way back to the highs going back to the summer. So right now, currently XRP looking very good. Now, also in that video, I was talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was trading almost at like 89K. Right now, Bitcoin is roughly above 91.4K. This is very good to see as well. On the 24-hour span, we are still seeing that nice uptrend form. I've been talking about this uptrend for quite some time. We were looking at this mainly holding in the end of December. It did hold, and then we just kind of continued to build out a floor, and now we're starting to see this move to the upside. Again, we're not out of the water just yet. Looking at this on the weekly, if we manage to close this weekly candle close above 90.4K, that's a very good that's a very good start. Now, if we're going back to the 24-hour span and we're really addressing what's happening right now on the 24-hour span, the main thing that we're looking at here is a candle close above 93.6K. This is what we want to see on Bitcoin. If this happens, we will create a higher high. This is after creating higher lows on this chart. This is very bullish to see because, again, this is showing us the strength of Bitcoin. Now we create a higher high, and that's where we start to see the big bullish signal arise. That's where we start to see Bitcoin mainly push significantly higher above $100,000. This could very well be the beginning of a much larger rally on Bitcoin after building out this base for weeks on end since going all the way back to November 17th. Now, I did make a post on X and I said most of my timeline is bearish right now. This is the total chart crypto market cap value. Do you see what I see? Now, this is the image of the total that I was posting. At the time, the total was trading at about roughly $2.98 trillion. And the main thing that we were looking at here, if we're looking at RSI and price action, is that we are in bullish divergence. Now, how did this play out? Well, we're at 3.09 trillion. We are bouncing off of those lows. RSI is starting to break to the upside after rounding the bottom on the moving average, very similar to going all the way back to April. I do suspect that we will most likely have this start to drop a little bit, maybe retest a midline here after we start to try to break above 3.13 trillion because this is that prior high. But this has played out perfectly. This is exactly what we wanted to see. Now, if we manage to flip this blue zone, if we get into this blue zone and we're starting to trail in it, That's going to be very good to see because, again, that's where we start to build out a base on the total. That's where we can start to do something similar to what we saw back here in the summer, where we just kind of chop within this a little bit, and then we start to have a much larger rally to the upside to retest the prior highs. That's exactly what I would like to see. But like I said, with us getting close to this high here, we might have a potential sell-off, chop a little bit, finally break up into this channel, chop a little bit more, and then finally get that big, massive move. Now, it's not going to take months or anything like that. I suspect that by the end of this month, we should start to really have this move, formed on the chart. But so far, this has been playing out perfectly. Now, I also did mention Bitcoin as well, which we'll get to here in a moment, but I did say I'm going to double down on this post. I'm fully expecting this market to wake up in a big way by the end of Q1. No catalyst, just pure TA. For those who don't see it or don't know what this chart below is showing, it's bullish divergence. While everyone has been peak negative lately and price action has been chopping for weeks, the bullish signals have been flashing. And yes, they have been, even on Bitcoin. I said looking at Bitcoin on the 3-day chart too, it's mirroring the April 2025 bottom set up perfectly. We clear 95K and it's game over for the bears. And yeah, looking at, Bitcoin on the 3-day view, the main reason why I'm saying 95K is because our high wick here is about roughly 94.8K. Bitcoin already playing out that bullish divergence perfectly, bouncing around the moving average on the 30th of December. And now we're starting to have a much larger push to the upside. The good news here is that we have a impulsive move here on the 3-day view. And then on our next 3-day candle, which we're currently trading in, it's already starting to build a push to the upside again as well. This reminds me very similar to going all the way back here in April when we started to do the same exact thing. It's not going to repeat this full pattern. Like we're not going to just, go, all right, well, let's grab the bars pattern and let's just do this. We should just do this identical move over here. No, we shouldn't. In fact, that's never going to really happen in trading. However, it will look very similar, and it does look very similar. We're chopping and chopping and chopping, and we're waiting for that big push to the upside. RSI is the biggest signal of this because, again, RSI is so extremely similar in this setup where we do have that bullish divergence. Price action was going a little bit lower. Everyone was getting very bearish. It reminded me perfectly of April. Now, am I correct here? Well, only time will tell. However, I will say this, the factors are in place for this to fully play out. And Charles Schwab also just mentioned the biggest thing to focus on here. Charles Schwab is a massive name in TradFi. In fact, they have over $10 trillion in assets. I think today they have about roughly 11 trillion. It was 10.1 trillion back in 2024. So I think today it's a little bit over 11 trillion. But this is like one of the biggest TradFi names. They just came out and told us exactly what's coming. They said that QE is coming and Bitcoin could surge, says $11 trillion giant Charles Schwab. Schwab signals the Fed may soon restart liquidity injections. If QE returns, fresh capital flows back into markets and digital assets like Bitcoin and crypto could be among the biggest beneficiaries. This is from Cryptos R Us. Check this out.
Look, we had basically regulatory overhang, which I think was holding Bitcoin down significantly, probably to the tune of 50%, which is why we saw a big spike. We expected lower interest rates. We expected more money printing. We didn't get that. So when you actually factor all of that in, the fact that we're riding that kind of 90K range for Bitcoin really does make sense to me. And I think when you combine that with the fact that we're starting to see significant stimulus, we're going to see real quantitative easing. We're seeing quantitative easing light right now. The Fed is starting to buy its own bonds. And I think demand for government debt is going to fall significantly next year along with lower rates. So all of this bodes well for higher vol assets, including the likes of Bitcoin. Look,
and yeah, on top of this, right, we've already been witnessing QE injections throughout the last couple weeks to support this argument. Now, on top of that, we did hear from Charles Schwab CEO. We have Schwab just confirmed what's crypto been waiting for. Charles Schwab, a firm with 11 trillion in assets and one of the largest investor bases in the world, said they already custody more crypto ETF assets than anyone else and are actively working towards launching spot crypto in the next couple months. That alone is a big deal, but the real signal is demand. During the last crypto uptick, traffic to Schwab's crypto pages surged 400% and 70% of those visitors were new prospects. When everyday investors finally get curious about crypto, they don't go hunting for new platforms, they go to the institution they already trust. Schwab also explained why this is happening. Regulatory changes removed the capital rules that made spot crypto impossible for firms like theirs. Those barriers are coming down, and Schwab says there's now a clear path forward. Crypto is now plugging into the largest financial distribution networks on the planet. When Schwab moves, the market structure changes. And the reason why I'm going to play this video is because on top of QE, yes, all of the Wall Street giants are here, which means they are going to market crypto heavily to their clients once we start to see the market really pick up. And right now, we're starting to see the early signs of that. Listen closely.
24 by 5. The activity we see in 24 by 5 tends to be retail investors, and there is a predominance of non-U.S. clients. That's where we've seen the activity so far.
So moving gears to Donald Trump again, he has definitely vowed to be the crypto president, and we have already seen some moves to sort of roll back some of the harsher or tougher regulation on crypto. You have signaled your intentions to get bigger in crypto. Talk to me about what your latest, sort of crypto business looks like and where you see things going.
We think we're the premier destination for investors interested in investing in crypto. We custody the most crypto ETF assets in the industry. We are working on a plan to launch spot crypto in the next 12 months, ideally this year, but in the next 12 months. We have lots of ways for clients to get invested in crypto. They can buy the ETFs, and again, we're the #1 destination for doing that. They can buy Bitcoin futures. They can buy closed-end funds, which track the price changes of crypto. So there's lots of ways to get invested, and we have education around that. And what we saw in the fourth quarter of last year, when there was a real uptick in interest in crypto, is we saw a 400% increase in the traffic to our crypto site at Schwab. 70% of those people were prospects. And so what that says to me is that when clients become interested in crypto and they've learned more about it, the first place they want to turn is Schwab, because they trust us and they know we'll give them unbiased advice and that they can keep their assets safe with us.
Well, how do you get to spot crypto given the regulatory environment? What do you have to do? What do you need to hear from regulators for you to get comfortable with launching that?
I think there's a very clear path for firms like us to be able to launch crypto. There was a rule called SAB 131. What that rule did is it mandated that for every dollar of client crypto assets, we had to hold capital against that. Of course, client equities and client fixed income assets, we don't have to hold any capital against. But because people were particularly worried about crypto, as a bank holding company, we would have had to hold capital against it. That made it impossible for us to be in the market. That rule has been changed, and regulators broadly, other regulatory bodies have followed that guidance. And so I do think there is a clear path for getting this done. And we've spoken with our regulators, and again, we feel.
And yeah, I mean, all of these rules that are now starting to get completely wiped away, they are opening up the floodgates for these players like Charles Schwab to enter this space. And this is at a time where, yeah, the Fed is starting to silently begin QE. We know this because back in the end of December, they just pumped $31 billion into the US banking system through overnight repos. And on top of that, just recently on the 2nd, they pumped $19.5 billion into the US banking system through overnight repos. They have been going absolutely crazy in these massive liquidity injections. This is only supporting risk on assets even more. I don't think people realize what's happening right now in the crypto space. So while we watch Bitcoin jump to the upside, while we watch XRP jump to the upside, the main thing that I am focused on here, if we throw out everything, right? QE, all the institutional players, just going off of TA alone, this feels extremely similar to the April timeframe bottom. But this time around, I don't think that we're going to see a slight push to the upside. I think this is going to be the finale of this bull run where we go on the most significant jump to the upside that we have seen yet this cycle to top off this cycle completely and have our official alt season. I know it sounds crazy because we have been hearing about alt season for a very long time now, but the factors are there, especially when we are looking at Bitcoin, especially when we're looking at the total. And even if we go to Bitcoin dominance as well, right? If we're looking at this thing is starting to drop in a big way. I've been looking at this on the weekly specifically, and the weekly is giving us, let me just redraw this. I don't know what happened to this chart, but just looking at this real quick, we are starting to see that hammer here where we have a lower high, and I'm just watching for us to take out this 58.94% level to have that free fall back into this low from September. And if we manage to lose this low, then I do think that alt season has officially started. So there's a lot of major factors here. All of them are hinting at us flipping bullish yet again. I doubled down. I'm staying committed to this. If I am wrong, I will admit that I'm wrong, but I don't believe that I am. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.